So we've seen some beautiful backyard ponds today, but coming up next, we're going to go see some things on a much larger scale.
We're visiting one of Colorado's true treasures. Go with us to Denver Botanic Gardens, where we're going to see water gardening done on an inspirational level.
My name is Nick Snakenberg. I'm a curator at Denver Botanic Gardens, and today we're going to do a quick tour of the aquatic ponds and our aquatic plant displays at DBG. This pool is in our romantic gardens. We've concentrated on plants with a Colorado connection. We call them legacy plants, plants named after people important to Denver Botanic Gardens. Another plant featured in this pool, though, are the Nelumbo, the sacred lotus, native to India and China. They really require very warm weather to bloom well, so it's taken them a while to get started. They are in bud and about ready to bloom, but in another week or two they'll be filled with bright pink blossoms, maybe up to a foot across. To have an attractive pool, of course the water lilies are great because of their flowers, but it's nice to have marginals or emergent plants that break the water surface. So something we've used a lot in this pool is Acorus. It's the reed-like grass. It's sometimes called a sedge, which is incorrect, but it has fragrant leaves, can be found pretty much worldwide. They used to take the leaves and crush them and throw them on floors in medieval Europe to give a fresh scent to the houses. So if you crush the leaves, a common name for it is sweet flag. It has kind of a sweet, spicy fragrance. Most of the pools at Denver Botanic Gardens are kind of more formal because of the concrete edges. We don't have much in the way of naturalized ponds, so sometimes our plants are arranged in a more formal arrangement. So we have the taller plants in the middle and shorter things around the edges. Also easier for our visitors to see the low plants at the front and taller things in back, but in a backyard pool you could maybe approach it the other way around if you wanted to, just make it a little more wild and informal. At Denver Botanic Gardens we refer to this pond as our upper pool. The waterfalls you see behind us are the starting point of all the waterways. The water works its way through a series of canals and pools to a pond at the lower end of the gardens and then is pumped back up to these towers to start its circulation over again. In this pond we're focusing mainly on hardy water lilies. All the plants behind me were overwintered in this pool this past winter, and just over the past few weeks have really burst into bloom. A couple notable plants in this pool are the bright yellow plant just to my left. That's Nymphaea Joey Tomasek. It's named after Joe Tomasek's daughter, who was the curator of aquatic collections here for nearly 30 years. Next to it, right behind, that peach-colored lily is called Colorado. Because of Joe Tomasek's long history in the water garden collections, many nurseries across the United States have chosen to honor Joe and his contribution to water lilies by naming plants developed here at Denver Botanic Gardens in honor of him or of people that have collaborated strongly with us. Most of the plants in this pond will get quite large, up to 5-6 feet across, but there are some that stay a lot smaller. The small red one down below here is called Attorney Elrod. And you can see from the leaves it's much smaller and would be a great choice for someone who doesn't have a pond but wants to have a water garden and maybe a raised container on their back patio. We dye the water in our waterways for several different reasons. First, it blocks the view of all the bricks and containers and pots and everything that are propping these plants up. We get questions a lot about how deep the water is. It's actually only about 2 feet deep. And another reason to dye the water is to cut down on the amount of light that penetrates and reduces algae growth. And another reason our visitors really appreciate is that the darker water reflects colors better and makes for great photography. In addition to hardy water lilies, this pool also contains tropical water lilies as well as different marginals and our Victoria water lilies. The difference between the tropical and the hardy water lilies is pretty self-evident, I guess. The tropicals are not winter hardy in Colorado. So these plants produce tubers during the summer. As the plant grows, it develops an underground tuber. And those tubers are saved at the end of the year, kept in refrigeration over the winter, and then started in our greenhouses in the spring in order to come back out to the pools again when the weather warms up. These plants have only been in the pool a couple of weeks, so they're just getting going, but in a couple more weeks they'll really have put on size and a lot more bloom as well. Tropical water lilies can be a bit trickier for the home gardener, but they're completely doable. Their requirements once they're in the pond are the same as for a hardy, but because they're not winter hardy, they may be a little harder to overwinter. For that reason, some people treat them almost as an annual and buy a new one each spring, but they are a nice addition and a nice variety to a pool. As with any type of gardening, water gardening is a continual learning process, so we're always trying new things and different ways of doing things. As a garden evolves through the season, because these plants are not planted in the bottom of the pools, it's a concrete bottom with potted plants, we can come out and rearrange plants, change color combinations, and make this pool a constantly changing display for our visitors. Many of our plants are just getting started for the season, and as the weather warms up, they'll be growing stronger and bigger and producing more and more blooms. So I'd encourage everybody to come to Denver Botanic Gardens this summer and enjoy our aquatic garden displays.